parents or panelists just to do a brief introduction for about one, not more than 2 minutes. And with this introduction, what we want is just for you to tell us. And might I say that the format of this session that we'll be conducting, so we'll be asking our panelists questions on the topic that is maintaining purity in a sexually immoral world. We would want to reserve questions for at the end of the program or the end of our discussion. However, um, if questions arise that we can take in between acts, in between our discussion, then we will try our very best to do so. Right? So firstly, I want our panelists to introduce themselves. They can tell us or tell the audience how many children they have or have raised, the ages and whether or not they are saved. And before doing that, I really want to extend greetings to just about everyone that has joined with us on the World Wide Web. Persons that are on Zoom, on YouTube, and we welcome you here with us today. All right, so I will start with Sister Sedona Grizzle.
Okay.
Right, you can go ahead.
Okay. Bless the Lord, everyone. Blessed and happy to be here. I am Sedona Brown Grizzle. I've been in church for all my life. One of those things is a born in church, yes. And I have a female 13-year-old child. Yeah, did I get it right? And only one, only one child.
Okay, one child. All right. And can you share your child is saved, right?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay, all right. All right. So, Sister Graham, you're up next.
Bless the Lord, everyone. I'm Tamika Johnson Graham. I have two sons, and one saved, the other one waiting for the Holy Ghost. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, moving right along. Brother, let me see. Let me just get the ladies out of the way first. Sister Morgan, Sister Pamela Morgan.
Bless the Lord, everyone. My name is Pamela Morgan. I have one child, son, and yes, he is saved. God bless you.
Okay, awesome. All right. Uh, Brother Rogers.
Okay, so bless the Lord, everybody. Right, so I have two sons who are now adult, and yes, they are saved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, Brother Kirby, Brother Lawrence Kirby.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lawrence Kirby. I have two kids, one son and a daughter, both of which are on the autism spectrum, and they are not yet saved.
Okay, and we understand that you are also an educator. Are you able to share with us the age group of children that you would interact with or would teach?
All right. I started out in the secondary school system, so I first taught at Geisel High School, then Immaculate Conception High, and then I went from there to Hartrust. So I spent most of my teaching days teaching young adults. So so you find out that at least the youngest child that would come to me while at Hartrust would be about 17. And of course, the oldest could be my father or mother. So it's the age disparity there is pretty wide. But
Wow.
while at Immaculate, pretty much from 11 all the way up to about 18, and the same thing at Guys Hill High School.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, so moving right along. Yeah. So we're here talking on the topic of, sexual purity and how this affects our children. So the next question I'd like to ask, right? It's whether you have gone ahead and did any preparation in terms of preparing your child as it relates to sexual purity. How did you prepare your children or child to value sexual purity? And what age did you start preparing them? I will start with Sister Sidona Grizzle.
Okay, all right. So I have a little backstory on how I started. When I found out that I was pregnant with child and gave birth, um, something came back to me just before, well, not just before, but actually when I was about 12 years old. I remember a Sunday evening I went to youth ministry. We were at the Maxwell Park Children's Home at the time, and something happened on the bus. And I remember at that early age, I prayed, and it impacted me in such a way. And I prayed and I asked the Lord to touch me so that I don't have a lot of relationship. And the first male our boyfriend that I have should be my husband. I remember praying that at about 12 years old. And when I gave birth to my daughter, it came back to me because that's exactly what happened. And I remember the prayer that I prayed at 12 years old. And then I got married at age 23. And the only person that I had a relationship with was the person that I got married to. So when I had my daughter, I said, Lord, well, if you answered that prayer for me when I was 12, where I was just a child, I believe that you can answer my prayer. And I started praying for sexual purity from the baby was born. So that's
Yeah.
when, in terms of age, that's when it started. So I started praying that prayer from she was born. And in terms of as she grew up, seeing changes in the body and so on, you try to have that conversation, tempering, of course, how she is responding to it. If she's ready for it, you kind of, check it if she is ready for, and we continue to have that conversation. So and also to reminding her of how important it is to remain precious. Don't let anybody touch you. Don't let So as soon as I see it growing, and you kind of put it in between here and there as she was growing.
Okay, understood. All right. Um, Sir Rogers, same question for you, Brother Prince.
Okay, so I started from birth, right? I wasn't raised in the church. As Sister Sidana does, I came in we were about 19 going 20 years of age, and I realized that this is the way that we should live. Our body should be the temple of God, and there are certain things that I've been through, right? Where my parents wasn't married, and my father had a lot of children. So I didn't want my offspring to live the life that I used to live. So I started from early teaching my children about living for God and sexual purity, meaning that their body is the temple of God. And as what Sister Sidana said, don't let anybody touch them, and they must not touch anybody either. And I try my best to have a close relationship with my boys to the point where they can tell me anything. So I remember one time, one of my son came home and tell me that he kissed a girl. And I tell him that, look here, I don't want you to go to any prison, you know, right? You are not to kiss anybody, and you are not to let anybody kiss you either. So we had that relationship from an early age where, you know, we trust each other, and they would confide in me. Maybe they don't confide in their mothers so much in along certain line, but they would tell me anything. And I also teach them about their body parts and all of that, what man have and what woman have.
Right.
To the point where they can ask us any question.
Right. And you spoke about trust. That building that sort of trust, did it make it any easier to have the discussion with them?
Yes. Yes. Sometimes I would spark a discussion, you know, and even though they are adults, and I would, you know, I would spark some discussion and, you know, ask them about school and ask them about girls and all of that. And they would tell me, you know,
Awesome.
if they have crush on any girls and any girls have crush on them and all of that. So
Right.
we usually have a close bond, still have.
Okay. So would you say then that trust plays an important role in terms of being able to have a discussion?
Yes, very, very important, or extremely important. Um, you don't want your child to have an issue and speak to somebody else. You want them to speak to you first.
Right.
Right. I just want to add that when I was growing up, you know, my mother, she couldn't read and write so well, but she find a way, you know, how to let us trust her to the point where I remember when I was going to basic school, I was telling somebody this the other day that when I was going to basic school, I had this crush on this girl, and I told my mother, and I tell her not to tell anybody. And it is so funny that this girl leave the basic school, went to another school, and she didn't even know that she was my girlfriend. So I
Yeah.
tried, you know, so I tried to develop that trust with my children, you know. If they said, Daddy, yes, yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. So I have a question for Sister Graham, right? Sister Graham, um, we know that children they have several challenges as it relates to, you know, sexuality and so forth. So can you share with us who are here online, what are some of the challenges that your child or your children face? Said you have two sons, right? So what are some of the challenges that your children face with sexuality? And just as Brother Rogers would have mentioned, were they able to come to you and have that sort of discussion?
All right, I have two sons. So one is 10, the other one is, 22. I remember when my eldest son was in high school, we were talking. Because some things I don't talk, his dad would do most of that.
Right,
And
right,
we were talking and he was saying to me, you know, for male, young men, young boys being that age, they have to stay focused. Based on where our conversation line where it was going. And he would share with me what girls would try to do, touch them at the ear, try to touch them at certain areas where, boys or they would react to see how they would react, and these are some of the things he would share with me, but then he will tell me how he would react when they approach him, because whether you want to believe it or not, female does do that, and
right.
they will do that to our boys, because I don't know, but might be some, might be exposure, so they will know. So they'll just have to know who they are as an individual, and he would share. And he shares some stuff where you can see that really and truly having conversation with your kids and allowing them to trust you where they can share is very important. Then you'll know that you don't have to worry about what will happen when you're not in their presence.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Sister Morgan, how about you? You have son, right? What are some of the challenges, if any, that you had as it relates to, talking about sexuality? Maybe you could share with us at what age you were able to have that sort of a conversation. And if it is that you were able to, your son was able to come to you, or is it a case where you had to just sit him down and have that conversation?
Bless the Lord, everyone. I spoke to my son at about 8, 9 years old, and I'll tell you why. I went to a PTA meeting one day, and there was a teacher speaking about her experience with two grade 4 students, a boy and a girl, carrying on in the back of the class while the session was going on. And that kind of opened my eyes because I wasn't even thinking about having a discussion like that with my 8, 9 year old son.
Right,
And when I got home, of course, I would advise him how to act around members of the opposite sex, even at that very young age, and advise him that I have an open door policy. So I became a single parent, not by choice. And it took me by surprise that I would be the one to be telling my son all these things.
right,
But I found it easier because I developed a relationship with him, and I let him know that there's nothing that you cannot tell me. I have an open door. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't allow persons. And there's something else that I've always told him. Nobody should be threatening you on the outside or promising you anything for you to do something that is not right. Never believe that you have to succumb to somebody else's wishes simply because they're a teacher or an adult, or it doesn't matter who it is. I have an open door policy. Come and talk to me. And so from that PTA meeting, I found it easy to speak to my son about all of what is happening, the things that will happen when he, just secludes himself with a female, or, just things to look out for. And I hoped that that would help him to understand that I am here and he should not be afraid to speak to me about anything. So about 8, 9 years old, I am speaking to him about sexual purity.
Take your time.
awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Sister Morgan, I'm still with you, but at such a young age, right? Was it more challenging than, in latter years in terms of when you're just sort of breaking the ice and, you know, trying to educate your child about sexuality and sexual purity and so forth? Was it any at all challenging though to have that conversation?
It was challenging simply because I thought I wouldn't be the one who would be having that conversation with my son.
Right, right.
But I realized that I had to do it. So the challenge was just because I had this mindset, that I'm not gonna be the one to tell my son about the birds and the bees, for example. You understand? Somebody's father would be doing that, but unfortunately, it was left up to me. So that
Right.
was the only challenge really I had, with just letting him know all of what will be happening, what to expect, how to treat our females, the expectation of how he should be treated as a male, how far to go with a female, that sort of thing. So that was my main challenge.
Okay, thank you. All right, so moving right along, Brother Kirby, I have two questions here for you, sir. Well, the first question, seeing that you are an educator, and well, although you outlined that you would have had more mature students, especially when you're working at heart, working with young adults and so forth. Question still goes out to you. We have the terminology known as the tween and the teen years. So pre-adolescents, when they're making that transition to becoming teenagers and so forth, right? It is said that those years particularly are for a lot of persons the years that persons don't well have significant challenges, right? So the question really is, what are some things that parents really should look out for and strategies to overcome them? The mere fact that sometimes children will operate a different way when they are at school or among peers than when they are at home. The question is, what are some of the things that parents should look out for?
It's a it's a number of things that you will see exhibit. And as an educator, when you sometimes sit in the classroom and you'll just allow them, especially in when you call a lab time, because I'm an electrical teacher, so you'll have lab times and you'll give them a project and you'll allow them to be themselves while they are working. And it will amaze you the things that you hear those mostly boys um say. And it's interesting because for some of them, they are pretty smarter than us when it comes to those gadgets. And that's one of the most common um mode of communicating between them and their peers. And interestingly, when I was teaching at Immaculate, one of the things that struck out to me that it wasn't my direct charge, but she did not have a cell phone. But what she did, she bought a chip and she'll use her friend phone in the day with her chip. When she's leaving, she'll take out her chip and give back the friend the phone. So you think that she's all good and dandy because she doesn't have a phone for herself, but they try to find a way around it. And you'll want to think that that sounds like a boy thing to do. But when it comes to issues like this, there's no gender associated with it because they'll always try to find a different way around. My boys will tell you, especially when they were at Harchus, they'll tell you how they'll go through a friend and a friend to get in contact with somebody else, or how they'll go from one class to the next to get in contact with somebody else. It's not like in my day when you tell it here and you'll try to find some creative means of dropping a line over there. They have a lot of gadgets. And in terms of you can set up a million passwords, they're smart. They probably know more about the gadgets and the devices than you do. So much like what Sister Morgan says and Brother Prince and Sister Tamika, you have to set the groundwork from day one. So at least they understand that they can communicate with you because you don't be fooled as a parent, you're not the kids' only influence. No, they don't spend most of the day with you. Most of the days are spent at school. And I can't tell you some of the things that I've heard. One thing I can tell you, while teaching at Hartrust, I've taught over the years a number of females, right? And I remember particularly one. One tells me that, look, he bats both sides of the fence, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, when the guys in my class hear that, man, eyes pop wide open because more things start to go through their minds. Why? When they think about the music that they listen to. Not like a Peter Bryson sexual stuff, they are a little subtle. So you'd have to read into it. These things are right out there, and you hear them play on the buses, you hear them play in the taxis, and those are the hype buses, the hype vehicles, and those are the things that they are listening to. It impacts them. How do you guard against that? You have to create a foundation from day one. not only create a foundation, but you have to model a particular lifestyle as a parent, especially as a father. You have to model a particular lifestyle because um, as a father for daughter, I want to model a particular lifestyle that even when she steps out there, she doesn't have to go there and search for love. She doesn't have to go out there and fall for some of the crazy stuff that I've heard some of these boys talk about in class. You have to model a lifestyle. You and try to instill as much as possible in these kids. The things that they listen to, some of the movies that they watch, the songs, especially the songs that they listen to. Most of the boys, you will not hear them in a movie here or there. A case in particular, I had one. I can give you a ton load of story. I had a guy with I taught him probably about 5, 6 years ago. And I remember coming to the lab, the electronic lab. He was on his phone, glued into the phone, didn't even realize that a person's coming, watching porn in the class. Tried to talk to him about it, said, look, this is not appropriate and talk counsel and stuff like that. Lost his first job because of that.
Wow.
Supervisor caught him watching porn and while the line was running.
Wow.
So you have to start from day one. If you haven't started, I'm not saying that it's futile um to say, okay, don't do anything. But just like Sister Sidoni, she starts to pray from the child, just came out. Sister Morgan, have an open door policy. You have to start to set the foundation there and instill it from there that when they go out there, at least the competing arguments that are out there, they something would have been etched in their souls from early out. The
All right. Thank you
competing
for sharing.
arguments are a lot.
Thank you for sharing. And just to follow up on what you mentioned, in terms of the strategies and so forth to start from early. But do you believe though that it takes a different sort of strategy in terms of gender? So when you're dealing with the girls as opposed to the boys, or is it a case where you can apply to both genders?
Uh I think the approach in some aspect would be different. From a male to a male, it's easier to wrap because some of the things at the comfort level would be totally different. Um, Again, back to my boys in my lab. We'll be doing a lab, whatever it is that we're making in the lab. It's easy to tap into a conversation that they're already having. Now, if I'm having females in my lab, as soon as I step into that lab, you can know mostly females are not going to feel very comfortable around saying some things to a male teacher. So one of the strategy, I think similar genders. So if I'm dealing with male, a male communicating with the next male, there's a lot of similarities. The challenges are similar. How a mature male strategize and deal with those challenges, a younger male will easily relate to that. On the other hand, when you're dealing with a female, obviously as a male, I can female everything. I don't know how to navigate a female feeling. I'm not a female. Right? I can generalize, say some general stuff, but if
Right.
she speaks to an ex-female that knows about the urges, knows about the different and overcome them, to me it's more effective. For one person, you can just make general arguments, in my view, from a male trying to reach both genders. I can be more specific with my male because I can directly relate to what they're going through because I may have gone through some of them myself and I would have developed, matured, dealt with them properly. So I think the challenge, the strategies would be different. How females relate is different again from how males relate. A female, the setting that would be more conducive to a female, in many cases be totally different. Because for me, in a lab setting, I get more out of my male doing hammering, They're bending some wires, connecting. Trust me, they'll tell you some crazy stuff. Leave you, make you look like you're not dead. No, I've never gotten that response from a female. However, when you'll hear a female instructor talking to a female, you kind of want, but she couldn't talk because, yeah, you can. The strategies, in my view, in many cases, will have to be different. You can make
Oh,
general arguments, but when it comes to each gender, you have to strategize a little different.
okay. And I'll come right back to you in a moment, Sir Kirby. But Sister Graham, right? You have boys. Do you find that it's challenging as a mother to have that sort of a conversation with your boys as opposed, well, you have two boys, but as opposed to perhaps the conversation that they would have with their father? Is it any at all challenge?
Well, for me, no. I don't, honestly, I don't have a challenge in communicating with my son at this age. You know, before, I guess his dad would be the one that, talk to him with certain things. But for him being at the age that he is, I will
Right,
share with him as it relates to female, what is expected, and, how female respond, typical from a mother to a son, but
right.
also speaking on the behalf of a woman and, the expectation and so on. So for now, it's not, no, I don't have a problem with talking to him as it relates to that.
Right. But while they were growing up and so forth at a younger age and
Ah,
so forth, was it easier for
well,
father to have the conversation
well,
necessary?
for me, it was easier when he was a little, the little one now. We don't talk much, read that, but I remember the bigger one. I remember when because he's one that observe a lot. And if you have a question, he's going to ask. And I remember I had to sing to him, boys have penis and girl have vagina. And, those things I have to be telling him and explaining to him, what, the whole situation of girl and boy and
Right.
why girl have, yes. But as him get older, that kind of pass, that button, they kind of pass on to his dad. But when he was a bit younger, that little, right, that's where I had him. Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. All right. And so also the importance of both parents, especially when in the family you have child that is male and female and so forth. I'm sure there are certain conversation that quite possibly they would be more comfortable speaking to daddy or speaking to mommy about until they get much older. But going back to Sir Kirby, right? In our previous empowerment seminars, right, we would have spoken about, what is happening in social media and how it impacts our children. Now, the question to you is, are there any strategies that you have employed in this area to promote purity, you know, and how is it received? I mean, earlier you spoke about that young man that was in the class and, he was, while in class, was in tune to pornography and, it ended up costing him his job and so forth, right? So, the question goes out to you. Are there any strategies that can be employed to promote purity?
Yes, they are. Um, the question is, uh, whatever you're struggling with now, what are you going to be replacing it with? Because if you have nothing to replace it with, you're going to regress. Now you have
Right,
to be replacing it with something that is more worthwhile, more meaningful, and sees you in a better light. For example, back to the device. On the device in and of itself is pretty innocent, is pretty useless until you start to activate it. Now, there's a myriad of things that you can look at. There's a whole lot of musics that you can listen to. So the question is, if I can, and from uh, his name just slipped me. It's a psychologist. I borrowed from and I employ it. I'm in my class when I'm talking to my boys because I don't necessarily talk all electrical, all electronics, and all math. Sometimes you have to stop the class and we talk real life stuff. So they'll say, oh, sir, then so what should I do then? Fine, put on the music here. Then what? All right, fine. How do I deal with it when I check a little catty and a little catty well I'm used to, but go get me and get the tongue clean out, the jargons that they use and me look freshen up and stuff like that. So sir, and they'll tell you that it help them keep focused and yeah man, and that make me feel sharp because yeah, go release some of the stress. I'm ready for your exam. I kind of wonder. Yeah, our sir, you know, she a call me and I know, so sir, me have to go. Can give me a little half an hour with the class. Sir, you can't me a little thing here and program it, for me walk the last night and it never work out, but she a program it, Yeah.
And
So,
they would have
how
that
the,
conversation with you.
yes, man, in a class, man. I think that's one of the interesting thing about lab time because they don't have the numbers crunching. They're not having to stress over me. I give them no formula. They're free to be themselves when they're
Right.
in lab making something. And them tell you, I said, "Sorry, no, you're too old." Yeah. And they'll tell you things. So my thing is, so when they say, then all right, okay, sir, fine. Get you. What should I do then? Fine. I'm not feeling the catty because sex out of marriage. Not right. And the one girl thing and a my thing. And sir, you are your one man. Yeah, old man. You can't go on a tree. Tell say, here where family Sprata say, here, yeah. And then some of you'll hear the girls say, say, how can I do with one man in talk about say, what's that, shouldn't say. Yeah, tell you this in class. So you have to understand that these songs that they're listening to, they are very impactful and they are satisfying a need, albeit not at a high level in terms of quality, but it is enough to scratch to scratch the or to tickle the skin. It's enough to for a scratch, and they're okay. It's a mediocre fix, and they're okay. Yeah, it is a fix that keeps them coming. So the question is, sir, all right, fine. What should I do? So Jordan Peterson is a psychologist. Um, he says, and I find it to be interested, that look, you have to know this is something more worthwhile to aspire for, that they can replace this what that they're struggling with something more worthwhile. So fine, to electrical. You're at a level, whatever you're doing. How can you set yourself such that set yourself a realistic but challenging target that you have to put energy in, right? So it will probably take more research out of you to get that done. So the amount of time that you will spend listening to this or watching this, you'd have to that time. So you're trying to redirect them, give them something more worthwhile to aspire for. Fine. Like pornography, masturbation, that's a quick fix. It's not a very lasting, it's not a very lasting qualitative kind of where you can reminisce about. It's just a little for the moment scratch. How can you tell them that okay, fine, this porn, this masturbation, this little one night stand is not the end all and be all, it's just a little scratch. How can you now move them from there to cause them to have a more better quality of output, a better thinking? It's just For some person, it will take longer than some. So you might have to go. You might have to give them other challenges. You might have to help to read them so they can see things differently because the culture that they're a part of would have impacted them a lot. Jamaican culture, and if you have enough girl and girl in a bungle, girl from Rima, from jungle, and they'll tell you that. And our culture as well, if you are considered to be a man, the more woman you have. How do you convince them that really and truly that's not how it goes? You have to know, help them to articulate a lifestyle, help them to see themselves in a better life and give them a better target to replace that with. So fine, you want to give up porn for argument's sake, what are you going to replace with it? Because if you don't replace it, you're going to regress. What are you going to replace it with? You have certain kind of music, fine, you give up the cartel. What are you going to replace it with? So you have to replace it with something more worthwhile, something more meaningful, and
Right.
something that they can see themselves better in. And there's a
Okay.
whole lot of things that you can think of.
Right. All right. Thank you for that. Sir Rogers, I know you have two boys, right? Well, young men now, now all grown up. But we know the importance of technology. We know the importance of social media and so forth, right? What are some of the strategies that you were able to employ in terms of still allowing your children to utilize the gadgets and so forth, but not for it to be able to have that sort of a empowering hold on them as it relates to the influence from social media and so forth?
Okay, my strategy, right? I allow them to use the gadget,
Right,
right? And there are times when I would have a look, not that I'm policing them, but I just want to learn. So, because the truth is, they are more savvy than I, right? So, I want to learn. I don't have an IG account, just my little WhatsApp and all of that. So, so a lot of times I might see them and I say, hold on, who this I talk to? Who the girl here? I understand? And so on, and they might tell me, and they might show me a certain conversation. I don't believe they show me everything, but they might show me certain conversation. And if they hear something, they can come to me and we can discuss it. For example, some music,
right,
some real dirty music. They might hear it somewhere and they say, Daddy, what do you think about the music? We would sit down and we discuss the music, and say, how can this music add value to your life? What is this music saying? Sometimes they are coding certain things and we have to decode it and we said, yeah, tell me now, how can this music add value to your life? But
right,
if it doesn't
right,
have any value to your life, then you just throw it away. I don't know if I answer your question.
right. But in terms of that strategy, right? Was it well received? Was it a case where they were able to see through what you were saying and readily accept it?
A lot of time they might not readily accept it, but I just want them to understand what I'm saying, right? So I will speak to them from a physical standpoint and from a biblical standpoint, right? And what can this music lead to that is contrary to the word of God? And we
Right,
have to remind them that, remember you're a child of God, right? And your body is a temple of God. And if you continue along this road, it is highly possible that you will meet your demise. You will do things that is contrary to the word of God, and the presence of God will leave you. And we point to some persons who were in the house of God, but because of things that they do, even in the Bible, so we do it from that spiritual standpoint and also from the physical standpoint.
okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Sir Rogers. Um, Sister Donna, question to you. As a parent, right? You know how children sometimes they want to engage in sleepovers, right? So the question is this something that you think parents should allow? and give a reason for your answer. And probably you can say if it is something that you have done before.
Okay, if it is allowed, certainly it is. I think it depends, of course, on the parent themselves and how they choose to parent. In terms of advising about it, I think it is something that you need to be very, very careful about, and would do so, one, depending on who the child is going to, and two, I think it also depends on the relationship that you have with the child. Because if you have a good relationship with the child, then if the child is uncomfortable, then they'll be willing to call you and let them know, mommy and daddy, I'm uncomfortable about this, right? If you don't have that relationship, something could happen that could be hurting your child, and they wouldn't say. So I think overall, we have heard Brother Prince mention about the importance of having a good relationship. Sister Morgan also, I believe, mentioned, the other parents mentioned that about having a good relationship. And I think that is very critical in such situations. If I've done it before, I have done it once, I believe, outside of maybe auntie or uncle. I think I have done it only once, and it was nerve-wracking for me, to be honest with you. I was very careful. I know the parents were very responsible people, but we cannot vouch for, we cannot swear for anybody, because the heart of man is desperately wicked, right? So I actually went through a little coaching, what do you call it now, like almost like a drill with her at the time. Okay, if this happened, what are you going to do? So I went through with her, what are some of the things that possibly could happen. I didn't go in details because she was pretty young, but I said, if you're feeling uncomfortable about anything, I'm going to give you a phone. What do you do if you're uncomfortable? Mommy, I will call you. I said, if it is that you are asked to do something that you're not comfortable with, you please articulate, just say respectfully, no sir, no ma'am, or no auntie, I don't want to do this. And I also tell her that the rules that I have for you in this house still abides in somebody else's house. So if auntie, uncle, brother, sister, anybody else allows for their children to have their rules, I explain to her that they have the right to have their own rules for their own home. However, the rules that I have for you, it stands even when you go somewhere else, right?
Right.
So I kind of went through that in preparing for her. I think it was more nerve-wracking for me than her, quite frankly.
But the question, Joe, is it something that you would do again in terms of, another
I was
sleepover?
just about to touch it, because then not very long after that happened, we had moved, right? And they had arranged with school and so on several sleepovers. Did we allow her? No way. No way. We don't know their gods. We don't know who they're interacting with. I don't know these people. And even though it is well organized and even sometimes go through the whole school process, no, you're not allowed. And she knows it. She know even before, from she hear about it, she said, my daddy's gonna say no, or I'm not sure my mom is going to. And then when it does come to us, she's going to be disappointed. And we let her know that is a part of the trust. There are a lot of times that we may say no. I ask her, do you believe mommy love you? Do you believe that it loves you? Yes, mommy. Do you believe that we will do anything to hurt you? No, mommy. So when I tell you no, it's for your good. It's not to hurt you. right?
So you feel there's an understanding on her
There is
part?
an understanding. There is an understanding. So she will be disappointed, and we understand that she will be disappointed. And sometimes what we will do is to replace it with something. So there was a sleepover. No, you won't be going. I know you're going to feel left out, but you know what I will do? We will go to Real Fruit, or we will go shopping, or we will what? We do something else that will make her feel like, I mean, she's a part of something, or she's having fun anyway. So she can say, I enjoyed myself with daddy, or I enjoyed myself with mommy.
Right.
So it doesn't feel as if when she's in her room when all her friends is, sleeping over and all of that. So we do replace it. And also too, I remember a situation with even with, let's say, Halloween, with the trick or treating or whatever. I know it's not necessarily related, but just to show you how when you have a relationship with the child, and then you of course you live by that example and train by that example, how they will stand up. They know, they believe in what they are taught, and they will stand up. So even for Halloween, and they said, how can you not have not be doing trick or treating or whatever? She said, I'm fine. And she said, like, so one of her friends said to her, you're going to miss out. She said, no, my daddy spoils me, give me all the candy I need. You understand? So that is just an example of how they will stand up when and they defend. They don't feel uncomfortable saying, no, I don't want to do that.
So
Because
in essence, the foundation has been laid, you would
the
say.
foundation was laid. So
Awesome.
it's not, it may not be perfect, but it's very important that the early years, I believe, are very critical to these things. Sometimes we cannot take some things for granted when they're younger, but I think it's very important from they are young to start setting the foundation, and that is what is going to hold them steady when they have to make this decision. When you're not there, when you're not in their presence, you teach them how to not just to follow the rules, but to understand why it is so they can make their decision, and they can make it even when you're not there. They're able to make the right decisions.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Sister Morgan, same question over to you. What's your view on sleepovers? Do you think it's something, you know, that should be done, or is it something that should be allowed? And give your reasons for that.
If it's something that it depends on the parents, they have to make their decision. I remember when my son was much younger and he came home wanting to have a sleepover, and I would not allow it. I did not allow it simply because I did not know the parents very well. They were unsaved. Um, he could sleep over by auntie anytime he wants, but not at a friend's house. I would compensate for that by telling him that it's fine if his friend comes over to have a
Okay.
sleepover, because at least I will be there to see what's happening, to regulate and that. So I would not allow my child to go and have a sleepover basically anywhere except with a family member, an aunt or something like that. So it all depends on the parents, whether they are comfortable enough to have their children go to other homes, for the night or whatever. But for me personally, I would not have allowed him at that age to go and sleep over. But of course, as I said, the friends could come by me whenever
Yeah.
they want.
And that's an interesting strategy. But do you think after a while it may become somewhat strange though to say that, the person is always coming to your house? Why is it that your child can, go and visit his friend just in the same way that his friend would, come to his house and so forth?
Yes, it probably would be, but then it would be my my stance. It would be,
Right.
I will not allow my child, and of course we can speak as adults, and I will
Right.
advise why not. And then they can make their decision as to whether or not they will allow their children to come over. But I would not have allowed my son to go sleep over um, with unsaved or persons that I am not really familiar with to that extent. So sleeping over is a decision for the parents, how comfortable they are to allow their children to go to other homes to sleep. So no,
Right.
I never allowed it for my son.
Okay. Sister Graham, I'll ask you the question as well.
Oh,
Is
no,
is
no
is
sleepover for my son. Only sleepover was at grandma.
okay.
That's about it. Um,
Mhm.
it
So
go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to ask, sorry for preempting, but is it a case then that you find it you have a greater sense of trust then if it is family members as opposed to somebody that is not saved or somebody that is not a part of the family,
It's just, well, my family is small,
right?
so sleepover is just like for grandma.
Okay,
I've never had well, I've never get the offer as it relates to sleepover elsewhere.
right,
But if I should, I don't believe that given the age and the time, I would allow it, to be honest. Um, Maybe I know who I am and what I'm capable of. And if somebody trusts me enough to say, okay, I'll allow. On my end, I know I'm fine, but I'm not sure about the other person, given, what is happening now. Understand?
right,
And sometimes, I mean, you have to know. Sometimes you don't even know enough, but you have to know. But when you know who you are, as the sister Morgan would say, she would allow. But maybe I would, given the circumstances and, knowing me, who I am and the stance that I will take. You understand? But I don't know on the other part. You understand? But no,
right.
yeah.
Sir Rogers, would it at all be a challenge for you to have, I mean, they're boys, they have to grow boys and let kind of explore and, grow them to be strong and support. Is that something that you would encourage? Sleepovers, have you ever had to deal with certain situation?
No. Yeah, we don't want to sleep over period. I remember before we got married, there was this, I think there was a session like this, and the presenter was deacon's wife, and she said that she don't allow her kids to sleep over because every house have a spirit. That's what she
Right?
said, right? And she said she don't want her child to catch any untoward spirit, so to speak. Maybe the spirit of spoilness, the spirit of you know what. You understand? Because as she said, every house have a spirit. And my wife, she was not even my friend at the time, but we were in the same, and we remember that, and we said, look here, when we are about to get children, after we married, so when we are about to get children, we don't allow sleepover, and we have never allowed sleepover. People have asked us to let to allow my kids to sleep over, and I said no, we will come for them in the night, 9, 10 o'clock, and we'll bring them back 8 o'clock tomorrow, but we don't allow sleepovers.
Okay, understood. Sir Kirby, I'll answer the question.
All right. For me, sleepovers are no outside of grandma and stuff like that. And for me, it's more than one reasons. Both my kids are on the autism spectrum, so I don't take it that most persons are going to understand them and be able to deal with them and take care of them properly.
Right,
Being on the spectrum, they both have serious speech impediments, even though they're getting a little better. So if they're hurt, if they're having difficulties or challenges persons might not be able to understand what they are saying.
Right.
Thirdly, um, I've heard too many horror stories about sleepovers. And my wife can tell you, she's also a teacher, and she can tell you a myriad of stories that she would have heard as well. Growing up, I would have heard a number of stories, and as such, and given the challenges that my kids have, I really don't want them to put them in that position. So grandma is okay, auntie. But friends and so on and so forth, no, none of that is. And the good part of that is that my wife objects to the sleepover thing from day one, so it makes my job even easier.
Okay. But seeing that, I mean, Sister Morgan would have outlined a strategy that she employed where the person is okay for the person to come over, but you're not able to go. Is that something that you would encourage
Again,
generally?
uh, um, y- you have to look at it. Again, it goes back to the parent, of course. You have to look at it from both ends. To my kids and the challenges that they have as well, they play totally different.
Right.
All right. How they operate is different. I don't think I'd want to inconvenience a next time to go through the entire night with all of that. No. Um, so how my house operates to facilitate my kid, a next child coming to spend outside of probably like a cousin or whatever, a family member, but like a friend and so to sleep over. No. Again, I've heard too many horror stories because you might be in your space and you think that everything is okay. They're in their space doing all kind of stuff. I'm not going to go down that road.
All right. Thank you for sharing. And before we go to our next question for our panelists, I just want to pause here just to say thank you to all the persons who are viewing online. We are from Fleet Apostolic Ministries, and we are, in another one of our empowerment series as it relates to maintaining sexual purity in a sexually immoral way. This is something that is possible. Can it be done? We're here hearing from our parents who would have shared some of their experiences and the strategies that they would have employed in terms of curtailing some of the exposure and challenges. And so, if you are just joining on with us, welcome as we continue with our next series of questions. All right, so Sir Kirby, I am still with you, right? So, the good thing is that you would have seen children, as I would have mentioned earlier, how they operate outside of the space of home and parents and so forth, right? And speaking from that perspective as well as a parent, right? It's not a case where we want to police our children, as I believe Brother Rogers would have mentioned earlier in the program, right? So this issue about sexual purity, is it any at all possible? Is it something that can be achieved, you think?
It is possible. It is possible. I know Brother Rogers mentioned about policing the kids. Again, if you're setting a foundation from day one, you have to ensure that certain things are on you have to pay attention to a number of things. I was listening to testimony of Jackie Hill Perry, right? Um, she was a lesbian coming out of that now full-fledged Christian, married and have kids. And she says, as a young girl at about 5 years old, she started um she started entertaining thoughts of lesbianism and stuff like that. And interestingly, she says that at about 7, her parents gave her a phone, and she said they did not know what they just did. So innocently, parents gave her a phone. For whatever reason, we think of, okay, they are going to school, they need a means of communicating with me If anything should happen, they can touch base with me and so forth, right? But what she used to do as a smart girl, when she hears something, she'll go home and she'll check on her phone and check on, and before you know it, she get exposed to this world porn, a world of a number of things. So I believe, depending on the age that they are at, you have to police them. You have to check them. Fine, my daughter is 4 years old. A number of cartoons that are out there. Have you ever heard of the animation or the cartoon called Arsa? Initially, it starts out pretty well, but it introduced this whole idea of same-sex marriage, and you can have multiple different types of family settings, multiple different types of parents. Now, if you see the new version of Peppa Pig, when they are introducing same parent, if you see the new version of Paw Patrol, have you seen those new versions? They might be just watching the older ones. We want our kids to watch the older ones because I just probably would have watched them. But the new ones that are like a year older, stuff like that, you have to be careful. This messages that they are sending in them. So you have to watch it. The next one, I think her name is Miss Roberts. She deals with speech therapy on that. The speech therapy is good, but who does she have her as her assistant? He has a transgender as her assistant, and they're introducing the whole pronoun idea.
Yeah.
They don't know that. So you, depending on their age, you have to check. If you're technologically savvy, you have to go in the background and see, because some of these kids will do all kind of stuff so to hide things from you. A lot of these phones have vaults on them, folders, folders that are lockable. You so that you have access, you depending on their age, and as they grow more mature, more responsible, then you can give them more autonomy. But until then, you have to patrol it because you remember you are not the only person that influences them. The flesh that we have desires sin, and sin makes sense. Flesh that we have.
But to be reasonable though, sir, Herbie, wouldn't you in some sense be breaking that trust that you and that child has developed? I mean, depending on the age. How would you explain that to a child to say that, you're quote unquote policing or checking all in the name of trying to help to keep one pure?
Well, I guess you answer the question. Then, if I love you, why should I discipline you?
Mhm.
Discipline is not nice. Discipline doesn't mean that we don't have any trust, and discipline hurts. But I love you, and because I in my scope of things, I'm seeing I hold it to a high degree of expectation because I want you to generate some amount of self-esteem for yourself because of the high degree of expectation that I have for you. Therefore, I want you to behave a particular way. How do I get that? If you can sneak a piece past me every now and then, discipline don't make no sense. Because just bear out this until daddy guy made, or just bear out this until. But if he understands that, look, daddy will know this, or mommy will understand this, and not only that, I can use this as a teachable moment to say, okay, fine, if we entertain with this, these are possibilities, and then redirect that trajectory so they can see themselves in a better light if they continue down a better pathway. It's important to know some of these things. Now, these subliminal messages, they stay in your they stay for long. The Bible Peter talk about the third and fourth generation, right? I was listening to a research done about mices, and the researcher says when you disrupt one, you never recover until the third generation. Oh, Exodus tell us that, right? When masturbation and sexual impurity starts in the family, you find out about how your grandchild have the same issue, third and fourth generation, right? Why can't we not prevent by at least doing some extra work here?
So in essence, you're then saying that you would rather do all the policing to save your child and
Yep. Again, it's age dependent. As they
Right.
grow, get more mature, and give them more autonomy. At 4 years old, what can a 4-year-old tell me? No, no, nothing.
Right.
When he
Understood.
gets 10, you wouldn't treat a 10-year-old like a 4.
Right.
Because over the years, and you would have seen the transition, you would have seen how they are developing, and then you'll know how to let go, how to pull back, what to challenge them with and stuff. It's a gradual process, but you have to do some checks.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Sir Kirby. Over to Sister Brown Grizzle. Same question for you. Um, is it okay for mommy and daddy to police over the children? And, you um, can we practically ensure innocence and purity in our children?
Okay. Are we supposed to police? That's what the question is.
Right. No, so the question really is, when it comes to dealing with our children, we don't want to seem to be policing over them, right?
Right.
But outside of doing that, how then are we able to, is it possible any at all for them to maintain, sorry, sexual purity and so forth?
Okay. All right. So yes, I just wanted to be sure there because you broke up on my side. Is it possible? Definitely. Definitely possible.
Anyway,
Just
you're going to have to explain that, all right?
it it's just based on the word of God. All right, in a wicked and cruel world, can people be saved and still stay saved? Yes, they can. And I say to you, can you be pure? Yes, you can. Will you have struggles? Will you have temptations? Sure, certainly you will. But you can definitely overcome, right? So and one of the things too that I teach my child, and it again hinged on relationship. Keeping secrets for the wrong that you do, it could be, it not could be, is one of the worst things that you can do because I believe it's a trap. So it's very important to build that relationship that even if you detect that something is wrong, or if they did something wrong, they can come and say, Mommy, Daddy, this is what happened. And we get into how did you deal with this? What happened? Why did you feel that way? How do you get, because if you keep it a secret, number one, it's a leeway and a loophole for the enemy to trap you again. Straight up. And there is no overcoming thinking that you can handle it, you can get over it, because a lot of times that's what the enemy tells us. Okay, it's just a mistake, it's just a little mistake, but you can get over it, and then you get into the same trap until it becomes habit, until you get hooked on something that you really and truly should. So you want to teach your kids that if you want to get out of any trouble, the best thing you can do is to say something. And I say to her, even I'm not going to promise you that I'm not going to be upset with what you do, but I would rather, that's for sure, I would rather you come and say to me and let us counsel together, let us talk through it. That is number one. So I will say for sure it is possible. I will also tell you, and it is hinged to the policing. Um, you know, as a teenager, I think I was going to UTech at that time. So technically speaking, you could call me an adult. And I used to go out on, I wouldn't really say dates, because at first the relationship that I had started just as friendship. But I tell you, my mom, oh my God, she called me left, right, and center. She called me during the day, she called me during the morning, she called me during midday, she called me in the evening. And it would have been, it's annoying. Who wants that? But I've seen where it has saved me. I've seen where I could have been caught in some form of temptation, but that call, that annoying call, and just the thought of maybe getting the call. You understand? So you don't get the call yet, but just the thought of maybe if something happened, we go get the call. So having that experience and see how that has helped me, as annoying as it may be, again, I go back to telling her there is going to be a lot of things that we will say no to, that we will annoy you about. But look, do your mom loves you? Yes, mommy, I know you love me. Do your dad loves you? Yes, daddy love you. We're doing anything to harm you? No. Deal with the annoyance. Deal with it. And in terms of policing, I may be a millennial, the latter part of, but I'm a traditional as it gets. I pay the bills in the house, I can open any door. I purchase the phone that you have, I can ask for you to show me at any time. The headphone that you had, you didn't work and pay for it. I can take it from you and listen to what you're listening. And we just have that understanding. I tell her, expect this. You won't always do it because you will do these things based on not just relationship, but based on relationship, but also to, you will see the mannerism of the child. You will know how to temper based on. So, if it's a child that is obedient, you may not have to pressure, but you should continue to audit, lest they think that, oh, it's okay, mommy trusts me now, or you still, and parents, whatever you say you are going to do, whatever discipline or whatever instruction that you say, it is going to be very important that you follow through with it, because that's the only way the children is going to take you seriously. That's the only way. So you say, I'm going to check your bag, and 1 month, 2 months after you don't check the bag, even when you're tired, check the bag. So when you say you're going to do something, ensure that you do it. So then they will know not to slip up. That's it for me.
Awesome. All right, we'll come back to you in a little bit. But Sister Graham, that question to you as well. I think I saw in the chat someone was saying that they have an app that monitors, what the children or her child watches and so forth. To you, this business of, trying to maintain sexual purity and, just having to check to ensure that our children are on the right path, is it attainable any at all? And how, if your answer is yes to that question.
Yes, it is attainable. For my older child, I remember he was in high school, the early part of high school, he had his phone. And then I'm not so computer savvy. So even with the phone, I'm still. And I remember his phone, everything him lock everything. If you have to go in and they say lock, you go lock. And I remember I said to him, look here, don't make me have to mash up the phone there, And I didn't take the phone from him. Like God, I pray about him. He said, Mom, the phone eventually mash up. And there were some little, nuggets and things that he would have learned from that. But little one now, the phone, I remember I said to him, you know what? I prefer you hate me for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Hate me for the right reason, but if I have to take the phone, I do it. And there are sometimes, truth be told, he's watching something that is seemingly innocent. But because of the song that you hear that is playing behind the video, it grabs my attention. I'm like, what is that? So when I go to check and see what he's watching and the music that is playing is not adding up. I mean, I said, mighty God, may them people are wicked so. because he's watching a video that is interesting, but the song that is going in his subconscious, it just, it causes me now to say, listen, don't watch the 3 second, watch something that is constructive. So anytime he's watching anything, it's normally at a volume where I can hear, or he's playing, well, he play a lot of game, but we kind of monitor that part too. But when he's watching anything, I listen keenly what it is that he's watching. So there are some ways that they're doing things subtly. You just, it's like you can't even police enough, to be honest, but you just have to be on your guard as a parent, you know. And when, as Sister Sidana says, when you say you're going to take the device or whatever it is, you do that. And as me tell my son, hate me for the right reason. One day you'll thank me, you know, and that's my view.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. Just looking in the chat, I see a few persons commenting. Sister Ewing Simit, uh, well, she mentioned that I think that kids coming over to our house to sleep over also has some potential for danger. Both ways seem to have issues. Uh, NB saying, I don't go for sleepover at all. When my kids were small, they only go to their grandmother. Pretty much she's saying that you can't trust anyone these days. Fiona saying sleepover is a no-no. And she also goes further to say that she has an app that controls the devices, I believe, for the kids, and she can lock and block their phone at any time from anywhere. So with that said, Sir Rogers, I know earlier you would have mentioned, about sort of just checking in on your boys just to ensure that what they were watching and so forth was wholesome. But the question to you though is it okay, as a parent for you to check your children's or your child's bag, to check the phone and to, see what's happening with them? Aren't you encroaching somewhat on their privacy? Is it okay to do that?
Yes, man, it's okay. And that's what Sister Tamika said. It's not, Sister Sidana, it's not their bag, it's my bag. I buy the bag.
All
I
right.
buy the phones. You understand? I pay the bills. I am the man in the house. I'm the leader, and God made me as a father. You as my child. That means I should guide you, and I won't hurt you. So I'm inspecting what I'm expecting. I usually tell them that. I'm just inspecting what I'm expecting of you. So
And do you find that that strategy worked though?
not all the time, but because a lot of them don't want you to search your bag. But I say, I don't care. I want to know what is in your bag. I want to make sure that you're on the right track. And then sometimes I look at the phones and ask them a few questions. Who that girl here? Who that youth here? So, so I ask them some questions. So you and that girl here talk so long.
Mhm.
Is my friend. I say girlfriend. No, man, I'm a friend who is a girl and all of that. And sometimes they would just tell me. You understand? They would just
Right.
tell me some things and we'll deal with it. So it is fine.
And you were still able to maintain a good relationship with your children, even though you were doing that?
Yes. Yes. Because as I tell them, I'm a father, right? And I know a lot of things that you don't know. You're innocent to certain things. And I want to make sure that you are okay. I want to make sure that the person you are talking to, right, is somebody who mean you something, who mean you good and all of that. So I will do that from time to time.
All right, thank you for that. Sir Kirby, I know earlier you would have mentioned about, I believe it was a female student you said would have, you know, exchanged the SIM card with another student and so forth. Do you think that it is okay for parents, to check the bags and check the phones And based on what? Because you would have a sort of behind the scenes,
View.
view. What's your take on it?
Again, I strongly believe, and as I said, sorry, I strongly, let's look at the phone for now. The tablets, the laptop. A lot of these students, they're savvy. They're not saving things on desktop anymore or saving things on a thumb drive. They have a cloud account, right? They they have a offshore server account that they are dumping things on. So if you search their laptops, you might not see anything, but they have a cloud account or offshore server account. You have to understand, I'm a technology educator. So I come across these things and I hear some of these things and you kind of wonder, wow, my little three-way telephone conversation on my youth, that foolishness. These guys are way beyond. So If you buys, if you buy that phone, you are the parent in the house. Remember, you are charged with the responsibility of that child. If that child uses the phone that you bought, commit any form of misdemeanor, and especially let's say distribute child porn, because when a friend send them a video of our next person doing this, and I probably might hear the story of the 5 or 7 um that molested that one girl, right? I don't know if you hear the charges. The part of the charges was distributing child porn.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a part of the charges. No, those are probably at best 14, 15, and they are charged with distributing child porn. Why then wouldn't you want to check to ensure that this device that you bought to the parent communication, that long distance parent communication with this child is clean? Because what happened, as Prince says, you expect particular behavior, but you're not inspecting to see if that's what is happening. You're not inspecting to see if some little anky-panky things are going on in the background.
Mhm.
Check. Then, as they mature, their the frequency may be different. And if you suspect some things is happening, you're not sure, you have to change the frequency. You have to probably change the random timiness, and to ensure that you at least, not only that, as Sister Sedona says, it it gives them the sense that, look, I don't know when daddy gonna check this, or I don't know when mommy gonna check this. I guess it don't make no sense. Yeah. Not all parents might have the capability to hack their sons or their daughters' phone. But then again, you're the parent. Now open this. You just now get it back. Now, if you take that
Yeah.
stance, you have to just mean it.
Mhm. But with what you mentioned earlier, and it's the first I'm hearing that in terms of having
The
the
cloud account,
offshore account
yeah,
and and
yes,
so
man.
forth,
Again,
wouldn't that
a
give
lot
you
of it's a savvy way of getting around it, and a lot of parents, probably some of you guys just hearing that for the first time. Most parents may never know about that. So again, you have to go back to what Sister Sidonia and Brother Pin says, and Sister Tammy. You have to hope that the relationship that you're trying to foster lends itself to trust and honesty, and they see they have an idea that this vision that you have for them is one that is worthwhile, so they can keep that honesty and trust going, because that can be there for years and you don't know nothing about it.
right?
May I add something if you'll allow me?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
sure, go ahead.
Okay. Um, I think sometimes parents are a little bit nervous if they will offend, if it will affect the relationship with the kids, if it makes them uncomfortable when we have to do some things. But from what I have experienced, You can be a very strict parent, a very strict aunt. Kids know love. And even if you're strict, they know love and they feel love. So when you think that if you discipline, it's going to hate them, actually it's the other way around. You will discipline and they will understand that is love. They know love and they feel love. So I don't think we can kind of get a little bit worried, and I do understand, but I've seen it around me. I may be strict, but you hear mommy, mommy, auntie city, then you are strict, but they still love you, they still want to hang around you. You understand? Because you're not overdoing anything. You're not making them uncomfortable. You're having conversations with them even when you're making decisions. You don't have to fear it. Just do what you're supposed to do. And just think about the relationship with you and God. We go through things too. We go through rough times too. And sometimes we wonder if God cares. But does he care? Yes, we know he loves us. It's the same thing. We know that God loves us even when we're going through tough times. But we know it's for our good. It's the same thing.
Quite an interesting analogy there. We appreciate the thoughts. Sister Morgan, what's your view? What's your take on this matter? Is it okay for you to be able to check in the bags and all the devices and so forth?
A loud resounding yes. For me, it is good to police, especially for me. I watch the bag, I watch the phone, I talk about it. Not every time that I am watching the phone or looking in the phone, I will let him know that I'm looking in the phone. So I might see
Right.
a conversation in the phone, might be sneaky, but I will strike up a conversation, not letting him know that I saw it in the phone, but
Okay.
I will strike up a conversation around what I saw, and I will just, redirect him because he knows I love him and he knows that whatever I do is for his betterment. So I will, of course, have to search the bag. I will, because no matter how obedient your child is, they are interacting with others and they will start to do or say things that might shock you as a parent. So you do your best at home, but when they go out there, what are they doing? So if you see a conversation, you have a conversation with him. I have a conversation. What do you think about somebody doing this? What do you think? And that conversation will lead into my saying, but have you ever done it? Will you continue to do it if you've ever done so?
Right.
So I believe that policing is critical. Any good parent will police. You give a child a phone, you're going to see what kind of conversation, what kind of music, what the laptop, what were you watching today, that sort of thing, because it's important to me to be able to guide him into making right choices. So when we do these things as parents, we are helping them to be mature and to be able to make wise choices. So if you don't guide them, they're going to continue doing the wrong thing over and over again. So you will have to let them know that, look, when I do this, it's because I love you and I want you to walk down the right path. It's not to harm
Right.
you, but it's to provide guidance. And that is why I am here to guide you to be the best person that you can be as an adult as you get older. So I do believe in policing. Do I believe that purity can be maintained? Wholeheartedly, I do believe that it takes a lot for parents to be able to guide and to direct. And will they appreciate it all at that time? Maybe not. But as they get older, they will understand what it is you are trying to do.
Can I
Understand it
share
better by and by.
an experience that I had?
I'm sure it can be so quick.
All right. When my son was about 4 years old, we gave him a tablet and we took off the regular YouTube. and we had YouTube Kids, so you know you can set the age range and all of that. No time him get boring. And I know I disabled the regular YouTube, and at one point, that's about the content then no, sir. I know in that age range, so oh am I listening? It doesn't make sense. So I went and checked. I used to watch regular YouTube. But we disable it, so how comes? Went ahead, disable it again. Couple days after me hear the same thing. And I say, yo, I really had to do something more, I don't understand. I went. Guess what my son did? Google Play Store was there. He went in Google Play Store, downloaded a game, and watched the video review for that and enter the regular YouTube. In the process of watching the video review for that, he gained access to enable the regular YouTube and watch it. And this boy did a 4-year-old. Tell me something of the police.
Interesting, very smart,
Exactly.
man.
All right. So he went around it 4 at a time. And imagine somebody who is studying little IT and knows a whole lot more, how much more they can do. You have to set the foundation, set that honesty. And as Sister Morgan says, when they go out, they really don't know what they're doing. But if you set that foundation, at least you guys can have communication thing going. And they too can even teach you some things about the very same software that you're oblivious to.
Right. Interesting viewpoints. And I must say that I believe that persons who are listening would have, garnered some very interesting strategies. And by the looks of it, we could pretty much almost mistake our parents as being members of the JCF. They pretty much endorse policing as a means and ways of protecting their children, all in the aim of, wholesomeness and protecting each child. But for our next question, I believe I'll start with Sister Morgan, right? Um, well, I'm not sure if you've had this experience, but how do you deal with your child with a child who has a love or desire for uh, secular kind of music, whether they're at school, if they have to travel in the taxis or on the bus, they will encounter this as much as you will try to shield them from it. But Sister Morgan, how do you deal with that?
Yes, as any young child, music was important. And if you listen to some of the music on the phone, then you will realize that, my child too liked certain kind of music. But the truth is, we know that music is powerful. And they may think that, oh, there is this kind of music, this instrumental sound, like mainly like this hyper sound thing that you used to listen to a lot. And it never had words, but just the sound was, a little disconcerting. And my child would probably like that at that time. He liked that kind of sound, or he would like a certain kind of music. But I would like to, and I would have encouraged him that, look here, music plays a whole lot, a big role in your actions or the things that you choose to do. So for me, it was a lot of conversation. It was a lot of, picking things from what I see on the phone and bringing it to the fore, sitting down, talking about it. How do you feel? Especially as a child of God, do you think that this music is pleasing to God? Does it give God glory? How does the music make you feel? Is your feeling appropriate for your age and that sort of thing? So yes, music, just like most young persons, gravitated toward the music, but I tried my best to kind of bring a turn and bring him to understand the impact that the music can have on an individual's life. so that he can at least start to choose the right music for himself, as opposed to my forcing him to say, don't listen this, listen this. Yes, it's policing, but doing it in a kind of conversation way to say, look here, God does not appreciate when we listen to this kind of music. Listen to the lyrics. It's not just the sound or the music that you're listening to, but the lyrics is also important. Because I remember one day he says, but it's just it. Listen to the music and not the words. And I'm like, but you can't just listen to the music alone. You have to put the words with it. So you have to find a way to help them to understand that, look, music is not just the playing of the drum or the guitar, but the words that come along with the music. How does it make you feel? What do you feel like doing when you're listening to this kind of music? It is important. You can't just cast it aside and say, oh, it's music, so anyone is fine. You have to choose wisely and think about what it is, the kind of reaction, the kind of emotional feeling that you want to get out of this kind of music. So yes, I did have a little struggle, but we kind of like work it out, talk about it, and just provide guidance from my end. God bless you.
Yes, thank you for sharing those strategies. Sister Graham, um, did you happen to encounter this challenge as well in terms of your children having a liking for secular music, and how did you deal with it?
It's not liking. I hear my little son sing song where whole. I may say, where him get that from? But as I would have stated before, the type of videos and the music that they put along with it. The videos are not necessarily not bad, but based on the music that they'll put with it. And that is where I would have my conversation with my son, the little one, as it relates to the type of videos he watch and why the music and, explaining to him. But as it relates to the bigger one, I never really have any challenge with him as it relates to music, but he's in music. But he would have been the one that would have pointed out some things to me. I would have been aware of, the impact of music and how it does impact. But I remember one time he came to me and he showed me a video and said, Mommy, look at this. No, I would be aware of some of the things then, but not much, because I try not to, go into some things. And when he showed me the video, he said to me, so a video like this and young people listening something like this, what do you think would happen? This is my older child would say that. And I don't remember what the conversation was. I think we were talking about spirits and so on. And the music was endorsing witchcraft. And when he spoke about it, he shared with me the depths of music and what it can do, and so on. I would have learned a little, but based on how he would have gone into it, it shows a sense of fear, but understanding with it because of the impact that it can have on individuals. So as such, he's more gravitated to his gospel really. And but he's so selective. It may seem a way, but he's even selective in the gospel songs that he listens. Right. So sometimes I will have one that I will listen, he's like, Mom, what is that? I just say, well, it's just, so it's like, I don't know, him kind of look at it on a different level, to me, a different level than I would. Or he looks into music. He would have had some experience, I guess, based on music and the levels of it. So he's more conscious of the type of songs that he would listen to. I remember one time he was listening to a particular artist and I said to him, why are you listening to that artist? The lyrics wasn't bad nor anything. It wasn't negative. It was just straight reggae. And he was saying to me, given what he's in, it's for him to learn the genre. I'm like, okay. But it wasn't a case where you have to struggle or have to fight with it. But with that understanding and the depths of where music and what it does, him even share and I talk about cartel, the type of songs that he's singing, him kind of, sensitive with the music part, and he will express himself as it relates to even us and the songs that we would choose to sing, and it should impact, and it impact in the world, and etc. But saying all of this to say that music, it's indeed, it have something about it that evokes some things in individual that only music can do. And for us to truly understand it and get the depths of it, we'll have to learn it, and God-given talent in a way where we say, okay, this does this. Because even as we as adults, we listen to some music and the things that it evoke based on our feelings and emotions, But for me and my boys, it's not so much a struggle based on us understanding music, but there are some sore point where we would have seen where we say, okay, this is a no. Let's stick to this. You understand what I'm saying? So understanding music enough and the good and the bad it can bring, we would have talked about and reason what not to and what to. That's mine.
So pretty much sort of a contrast as to what we would have heard earlier from Sister Morgan. And want to move on to my next question, and this would be to Brother Prince Rogers, right? So the question to you is, if your child, came to you and confessed that they have feelings for person of same sex, right? How would you deal with it? And how would you encourage parents to deal with such a situation?
Very interesting question. All right, so I'm going to ask a question though. Just bear with me. Is this situation where the child will come to the parents and come clean, so to speak? Is this just a big blow, or did we see the sign all along? Did we see a sign all along? A lot of time the signs are there, but as parents, we ignore it. Right? So if we deal with the situation from early, not to say that, or not to call the child names or anything like that, but I mean, maybe if it's a boy, in my view, right? Certain broken business and all of that, I don't want that. So we try to discourage certain things. I believe, this is my belief, that children, they have a lot of love in them, right? And you would want to see the type of the sex that they would interested in, and they would show a certain type of interest in, right? So if it's a boy, right, maybe they would have a crush on a girl, and I believe that girls also have crush on boys. So if we are close to our children, right, we will see these signs. Now, if it's a situation where it just come out of the blues and the child just tell the parents, in my mind, I believe, the parents should not panic, should ask the child from when did this start, and ask some more questions. And I believe that we can just give this child some assurance that, look, we will, if you don't know the answer, just tell her, look, I don't know the answer right now, but we will figure it out and we will work it out and we'll find help for the child. And I would suggest Christian counseling.
All right, interesting. Counseling is always good.
Yes.
Sister Brown Grizzle, sit down. Your child or a child comes and, express that they have feelings towards a person the same sex, how would you deal with that? What sort of, advice would you give where that is concerned?
I was sort of hoping that you didn't ask me that question. How would I? To be honest with you, I imagine that if my child comes and tell me that, I probably would put my hands on my head, fall to the ground, start speaking in tongues, maybe scream, maybe not, maybe get up and ask what you say again, maybe start pray. It would be just maybe hysterical for me. And then
Right.
probably when I calm down, it sounds a bit dramatic, but I don't know, maybe that's possible, I'd probably just get out of myself, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, after all of that panic or drama or fright or whatever happens, um, of course, I would have some question when this started, what happened. Perhaps I would probably question myself too. How did I not see that? Or not see it coming? There is just a whole lot of things that, God forbid, but, could happen because in a situation like that, as Brother Prince mentioned, counseling, well, not only would the child need counseling, but the parents would need counseling. And then, of course, try to find out what happened because you grow your child in a safe, what you believe is a safe space, right? And you would likely want to know what happened. Is it? I mean, we know it's hinged on a spiritual issue or battle, but then know when it happened, how did it happen, so that at least you can be fervent and effectual with your prayers, because that is also one thing, praying, but also being specific and perpetual about the prayer, and as well as, of course, counseling. But that's a terrifying experience. I'd probably go crazy, and I'll probably just start speaking in tongues, and go all crazy. But these things happen. These things
Mhm.
happen. So I honestly can't calmly tell you what I would do if something happens like that. But certainly, prayer, counseling is going to be a must, not only for the child but also for the parents.
Right. Counseling always important. Sister Morgan, I'm going to ask a question, but ask it in a different way. Let's say whether it's your child or another child. Let's say you're at church and youngster comes, whether male or female, and they express and they say, Auntie, I develop feelings for person that is of the same sex. What's the approach?
Oh boy. If it's not my child, I will let me see how I would approach this. Because of course I would ask the question, how long have you been feeling like this? Has anything happened for you to start feeling like this? Because in my mind, I would be like, okay, somebody probably messed with the child, somebody introduced this to the child. So I would like to get to know, where did this come from? How long have you been feeling this way? Of course, I would have to speak to the parents. I would have to encourage the parents, because if it's a child, then of course the parents would need to be a part of the discussion or to need to know what's happening with their child. So yes, of course, I would sit down and have a conversation with the child. How long has this been going on? How have you ever experienced any physical contact? Just to find out where is this coming from. And then, of course, I would encourage counseling, which I think is important, to find out how to try to get this child to understand that that's not the way to go. But I believe, all in all, it would be a very difficult conversation, whether for myself with my child or with another child. It would be very difficult, but one that can be handled with counseling, with the right person, this godly counsel, that is, just to try and get this child to understand. It might just be something that they saw, something they watch or something, and they feel like, okay, I want to experience this. It look good. And children are experimental and they want to learn about this and
Right.
whatever. So sometimes it's not even really a deep feeling, but just wanting to experience something that they saw and something that somebody told them about and stuff. So I'd have to get to the bottom of it. And then, of course, involve the parents.
All
Yes.
right. Thank you for sharing. And I know that some of these questions can be hard and just tough questions, but it's the reality of what we're facing today. And I believe that these questions have to be asked, Pretty sure there are, parents who are dealing with situations like these and are indeed, seeking for answers. So on to the next question to Brother Kirby, right? Let's say your child expresses to you that a schoolmate or someone at church, right, asks them to engage in some sort of sexual activity or in petting. What's the approach? How would you deal with this? Or how should this be dealt with?
Ah, um, again, that could there's a whole lot of things coming through my mind right now because the number of questions start to come to mind. No, you'd probably look at it probably different because of the different genders or your expression or your method might be a little different.
Mhm.
But let's say my son comes to me and expresses that a girl from school or church expresses this interest. In my view, that might be a little bit easier to deal with. Why? Um, I could actually start to, further question, ask more questions, how you feel. And again, for me, one of the challenges that I have with my kids, I can say the speech is not very good and they are on the
Right,
spectrum, so it's not easy to know what they know.
right.
You might just get up one day and hear something. And like,
Mhm.
you know that. Yeah. So for me, trust me, it's a lot of prayer, and my wife and I would pray a whole lot. We'll ask for a lot of prayer and stuff like that. But having that being expressed, we would have to inquire some more because what I know about my son, it he's pretty charming because I've seen him do some stuff and I've seen mommy have to say no 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 no, hurt him same way right on the spot. I've seen him make some approaches. The neighbor daughter kiss pan cheek and say goodbye. I'm like,
Mhm.
so whilst you might say, I say that smile, Prince. Whilst as a man, as a father, you might say, yeah, right direction. But at the same time, you have to say, okay, fine. I I appreciate the fact that you are interested in girls, but there's a right way to go about doing it.
Right.
From that perspective, fine, you can't really do anything about somebody saying something to you. How do you react with it? You have to remind them of the values that you would have set, the boundaries that you would have crossed, that you would have helped him to establish, and the repercussions of going across those. Now, you yourself may have had some experiences prior to, because I would have had my experiences prior to getting married, and I would have realized that, okay, fine. experiences, they serve me well into marriage. More so, they make things a little bit difficult, and you'd have to know real things. So you have to find it's a lot of conversation, find out from him how things going. It will be a little challenging because of the challenges that he has, but for the little that he can know. Also, if he can talk to his teacher, because his teacher would be around him, so probably she would be able to give me more insight. Let's say it's a regular neurotypical child, because my child would be considered neurodivergent. So let's say it's a regular neurotypical child that we can have a conversation with without that challenge. Then we'd have to know try to establish what are the um what are the value system. What do you hold there? What does purity means to you? What would you like to see at a certain age? How would you like to be known? Right?
Mhm.
And these are some of the things that you would want to reinforce as well. You could even share some experience. For example, the seven young guys. Um, for as long as they live, you even though they may have been forgiven a million times, they will be known as the boy that raped the girl. Do you want that kind of do you want to be known as the young man that maintain your integrity into marriage? Which one is more meaningful? Give them other alternative to them. Because yes, they might go across this one, but he's pretty charming. The next one will come. Set a particular groundwork and have them bind to that groundwork that they can still stand. It's like Sister Sidan mentioned earlier, that her daughter could say, okay, fine, my daughter being my father by mean of candy, right? Or you could, or that child can look and say, okay, I've seen my father just modeling a lifestyle with mommy alone, and I've
Mhm.
seen them get along perfectly fine. That's what I want.
Mhm.
So
All right.
it is challenging, but try to do some inquiries and set the groundwork, reinforce a number of things, and hope that they too make the right choice.
All right. So, Sir Rogers, the question is to you. I know you have boys, and these are pretty much older boys by now, young men. But let's say when they were younger, right? And your sons or a child expresses to you that while they are at church, at school, you know, someone wanted to introduce or, wanted them to engage in sexual activities. How do you go about it? And bear in mind that this may be the opposite sex or of the same sex. How do you go about that?
All right. So this question and the one before, in my mind, shows a child who is uncomfortable, right, about a situation and they need some help. The fact that this child come to you, child confide in you somewhat, right, and the child is seeking a solution. This is how I look at it. So if my son come to me and said, somebody, make this offer, I am going to ask them, how do you feel about it? Right? Well, I'm not comfortable about it. So what did you say to the person? Right? And then we'll have to find a solution, right? I would deal with it in a civil manner, right? And not to get too angry and attack the person and all of that, but we'll try to find the best way how to let this person know that I know, right? And don't ever let it happen again. My child is not comfortable.
So Rogers, but
Yes.
what is the case where there has been some contact in terms of petting and so forth? What's the approach?
Well, not because a boy, not because a boy, it is cool. The fact that the child come to me and talk to me about it, confide in me, this is a child who it is bothering, where this situation is bothering them and they need some help. They need some assistance. They need my view. They need my guidance. This is how I would take it. and have to deal with it that way, right? And let them know that, look, this is contrary to the word of God. You are not married. Certain situation, right? You should not allow to get yourself in because you can get into situation that, you know, can cause your soul, your life, your mind, and everything. And we try to find way, you know, to prevent that from happening again. Yes.
All right. I believe I'll ask Sister Graham the question as well. You know, child expresses that there's, you know, an adult or there's someone that was introducing them to sexual activities, you know, possibly where petting was involved and so forth. What's the approach in this regard?
Right. First of all, child coming to me and sharing that information, that simple, that is important. The mere fact that they have done it and come to express that they have done it and need a solution is important. Mark, you might be a shock or say, oh, but then now understanding that they were bold enough to come and to even to say it, my advice would be, you know, think about it in the sense of, although you know the person, have a little feeling for the person, or whatever it is that causes you to lead to that, that far. This
Right.
is why it is. Go ahead.
And I'm saying too that not necessarily that your child was the initiator per se,
Right.
but let's say in the case of, for instance, an adult, you know, introducing sexual activities to a child,
Mm-hmm.
what's the approach in that regard? And marking whether it's a church or school, you know, how do you go about dealing with it?
First of all, you'll ask how that make you feel. You know, the person making an advance at you. Understanding after the person answer, understanding whether the person is uncomfortable or if they're entertaining it. It all depends. But it's up to you now to say, all right, this is the situation. This is what the Lord requires of you as a child of God, that is. And you start explaining what it is, because a simple hi or a waving, but it just says a lot, but it's not just any wave. You might entertain a little here and a little there. You might see something and you think a second thought on it. So it's like, were you thinking about something? Did the person say something that caused you to think a second thought? And because things don't just happen so. It's a process, it's a series of things that would have caused you to reach to that stage, you know? So were you entertaining a particular conversation, knowing that, you know, you take a second thought and it, you know, reason it out, you know, and gradually it sleeks slowly. So all of these questions will come in play, but at the same time, you make they understand and recognize the value and why it is that they have to keep themselves and to avoid knowing the time that we're living in and the, you know, things that they can face as it relates to.
Okay. Sister Sidon, I believe you have a girl, right?
Correct.
So I'd ask you the question because earlier you said that, you know, it would have been a whole lot of hallelujahs and, you know, speaking in tongues. Somehow I feel like, you know, I don't know if it would have been a similar response, but, you know, let's say your child or a child, you know, confides and expresses that, you know, they were somehow being influenced in this regard. What's your take?
Okay, well, again, depending on the tone of how the child, how she would come to me and, you know, express, because as you said, it could be that somebody initiated as well as um, um, the child also partake. They just partake in the petting and whatnot, so they are well aware. So it could be that they express themselves as having had an experience and felt uncomfortable about it, or partake in that experience and feel guilty about it. So of course it would be two different approach in how you handle it, but more or less certainly, or whether or not, in either case, after doing some investigation, and of course reminding them of what is required in terms of living and holiness, and reminding them of what God wants of us, and how this thing can affect, or such action can affect their lives. I think it would be a prudent thing to engage the parent, or depending on the situation, the school. I think at one point I had to deal with something like this before. It wasn't necessarily like petting or molestation, but rather a child that was exposed, which appeared to be exposed, came to school with some material that was inappropriate, and it passed my child, and she had spoken to me about it, that this child did this and she did not like what they did. And I spoke with her because, first of all, not because the child come and express, you also, it's very easy to point a finger on another child, but you also need to know what was the intent of your child too. You understand? Because they are humans. You know, you don't want to think that your child is perfect, but you just don't know. So your questions need to be surrounded not only about in attack or wanting to find out about the other child, but also what is the stance of your child. That I think is something that is very important. And then I wasn't pleased, of course, about it at all. You know, these things, you don't sleep. It affects you even going to work. You can't wait until you see somebody that you can deal with it. I thought to go to the principal about it, and I spoke to the principal about it, expressed that the child came and spoke with me, my discomfort, and I'm asking for it to be addressed on an administrative level, right? The principal at the time expressed that, others have come to them. They spoke to the parent about it. Eventually, I think the child left, but I'm just saying that that conversation needs to be had with the child, and also to have an understanding of how involved, what does the child feel about it? What if they find that they like it? How do you treat or counsel with that, right? And again, it's not, while we'll be tempted to, let us not assume that it's all about the other child. Right? So find out what's going on, get a sense of, in this situation, you're probably going need to breathe so that you don't scare the child away, right? That they can't comfortably express themselves. So as I said, it's very important to get what's going on in your child's head, deal with there first, and then of course, where it's necessary, either the parent or the administration, if it's a school situation. I think it's not something that should be brushed aside. Sometimes we tend to ignore these things to say, all right, if it happen again, no, let us not let it happen again. Let's say something about it.
All right, very interesting feedback there from Sister Sedona. Thank you for sharing a practical example. And she would have outlined an experience that she would have had, and how she went about and then so deal with it right there and then, don't wait for another opportunity to happen before dealing with it. We're getting closer to the end of our program, so if persons have questions, you can put your questions together. So by the time we get to the end, we'll be able to address those questions. And so we'll move on to Sister Morgan, right? Question to you, Sister Morgan. as a parent, right? How did you prepare yourself to navigate helping your child? Because yeah, we know children, they need guidance and so forth and so forth. But was there anything that you did in preparation for dealing with, having that conversation with your child about sexual purity? And, was there any challenge in terms of preparing to deal with that?
Did I prepare? Not necessarily. I went with my own experience, used what I have read, used what I know. So no, I didn't do anything special in preparing
Right.
to have that conversation. I
Mhm.
just used my own experience, as I said, and from what I know, I just pull from that. And as I said before, I had to dive into the sexual purity with my child, my son, unfortunately. But it went well as far as I'm concerned, because I spoke from a female's perspective. I
Right.
can't be a man, I have to be a female, and I would encourage and let him know how important sexual purity is. You just allow yourself to abide by the word of God, align your life with the word of God, and understand that, whatever you do as a child, it carries forward into adulthood. So you just have to be careful and ensure that you abstain from certain things. Don't put yourself in certain positions that you will be falling prey to impurity. And, it, as far as I'm concerned, it just takes over time, having the little conversations here and there and, looking for opportunities to speak. So I
Right.
didn't do much of our going out and preparing. I just worked with my
Your own
experience.
experiences. Okay,
Yes.
understood. Sir Rogers, a question for you. In terms of, dealing with sexual purity and speaking to your children, is there anything in particular that really worked for you that you can say that this has really been a successful strategy and it really works?
All right, so kids love to hear the truth. They love when you're honest, right? So from an early age, I learned to create a platform, so to speak, where we can discuss things. If you know my two sons, right, they will challenge you, right, on a particular topic, and you have to find, right, the proof, right, why they should do this and why they should not do this, right? If you can't find them the proof, then you don't have any argument, so to speak. So a lot of time I would have to dig deep. I would have to give them examples from the Bible, about the scriptures, what the scriptures say we should do, what the scriptures say we should not do, what can happen to us, and find examples of individuals in the Bible who stray away from God and let women lead them astray and give them the example, about their outcome and all of that, and let them know that this is what God have for you, that you should keep your body as a living sacrifice, and wait on your wife. Not because you're a man, that means you should just go out and just, just let me use the word, run up your mileage. That's the word I use to them, and then you come in church now and you want to have a pure and clean wife and like them. Say, no, no, you can't do that. You as a man have to be, pure. You have to set your example. You have to be what you want your wife to be. So these are some of the things. And as I said before, they will challenge you, right? And I allow them to do that. Talk to me. If you understand but do not agree, tell me that, Daddy, I understand, but I don't agree with you. And I would have to find ways to convince them. And a lot of time I realize that it works. So I don't just push it on them. We have, I would say now, man-to-man discussion.
All right, interesting. All right.
And as I said before, sir, we talk a lot of things. We talk some deep things, some man things. Yes.
So in essence, you're saying that you have sort of been very open with your children,
Yes.
open and frank discussion.
Right.
All
And
right.
if I don't know the answer, I would do my research, and I would, if I even buy books online and all of that and read, and we read together, and yes.
Right. All right. So a question for Sister um, Graham, right? Seeing that you have a child that is now at a mature age, right? And seeing that you would have put some things in place, teaching about sexual purity and so forth. Is there anything that you think you would have done differently?
Anything I would have done differently. I think for me personally, I would talk to him more in regard to that, because it's more his father's side. So I could have gotten a better insight on, knowing where his headspace is as it relates to some things. Because I believe majority of the time, as it relates to talking about, is more his father's side. So I'm like, no, at the place where, because he's at the age where he's at, I am now giving him advice as it relates to the opposite sex and so on. But to do anything different, I would have wanted to give more input, between his team, coming up as it
Right.
relates to that, right? More than the dad, you understand? So yeah.
Right. Understood. All right. Going back to you, Brother Prince, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Okay. Yes. I'm thinking there are a lot of things that I wouldn't change, right? And I can't identify anything now that I would have done differently. I believe that as a father, I did my best, and I went above and beyond to set the examples and to be with them, to spend time with them, and to help them to grow into the type of individual they are now. And I think I did my best. So I can't identify anything that I would have done differently. The sleepover is definitely a no still. The way I do it is my style, and I realize that I get result from it. They say that I'm a bit strict. I don't know if I would change that. I don't know if I would change that. But the relationship, I think I did my best where the relationship is concerned, to a level where, as I said, we don't always agree, but we understand. And they can express themselves. They can, they are free to express themselves around me.
Okay,
I tell
awesome.
them that, I tell them that whatever is on your mind, you can tell me. And I did something the other day, and the big one laughed at me. I like him. Said, Daddy, me a big man now. So let me tell you what I do. I went into his room and I rubbed his head and I said, "Yeah, all right." He said, "Yes, Daddy." Then he said, so I said to him, "How are you and the girls now?" I asked him that, yes. And he laughed and said, "Daddy, that when it's small, I'm a big man now." So I don't think I would change anything. If it would give me some time to really think, to see what I would change. But I think I did my best, as I said before.
Great. All right. Sister Margaret, over to you. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Uh, no, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I think that, personally, under God, I have done all that I possibly can do. I even though my child is an adult, I still encourage, I still try to guide as much as is possible. So truth is no, I don't think that I would do anything differently. And if probably if I had more time to think about it, but I don't think I would do anything differently. I'll just continue to, as much as is possible. When you have an adult child, I remember when he used to leave out for school every morning, before he goes through the door, I always say to him, remember who you are, remember whose you are. And I did that for the 5 years, almost every morning. And even now, when he's going to work or going anywhere, I might say, remember who you are
Mhm.
and whose you are. So I mean, I think I've done the best that I can. Whatever failures that whatever area I may have failed in, hopefully he will, as now an adult, can rectify as he goes along. So I really don't think I would change anything.
Okay, all right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And just a reminder that if you have any questions for any of our panelists, you can, go ahead and share them in the chat. We'll try our very best to address as many as possible. We have limited time, and our time has been far spent. But I must share that I have a few questions that I have received, and I put it out there to our distinguished panelists, right? All right, so the first question is, right? Uh, what if you recognize that your child is going down a sexually immoral path that you once walked when you were younger? Would you disclose to your child, or would you just keep generally steering them away from that path? Sister Sedana, do you want to take this question?
Um, I my point of view, of course, there are different situations that surrounds, unique, conditions or situations. But I think being real makes a difference. And I think being real will give them an opportunity to trust you. Um, by the word of God said we overcome through our testimony. So you taking your child, you're already seeing them going in that direction. You can say, son, daughter, let me be real with you. This is what I went through. This is how it affected me. And I am so sorry that it could be that what I have gone through, it has passed through to you. And we want to break that curse. This is what I've experienced. I think it's very important to be honest with your child. And I think through that and through the testimony, then as they are getting their deliverance under God through that, then they will trust you enough to speak to you about it. That's my take on that.
All right, very interesting. All right, brother Kirby, next question over to you. Is it okay to share personal weakness with your child?
Um, pretty much I'll just piggyback on a couple of things that Sister Sidoni says, because you would have, for some point in your journey, would have gotten mature and hopefully gotten delivered from those weaknesses, and hence you'll be better able to steer your child. Again, if you want to maintain a healthy relationship with the child, honesty is important. Now, depending on the stage that the child is in, you'd want to break some things differently, age appropriate. But it's important. I think that honesty is good to say, okay, fine, son, I have a son. Um, this is X weakness. I've observed it. I've seen it, or you've said it to me. I had similar issues, and this is how I dealt with it. Yes, I had similar issues. It never went away overnight. You're having this, but you and I can walk this together because
Right.
I overcame, and I want you to overcome so you can be a better person. We can go through, and I think it would build for for good communication, good relationship, and we as father son we have an objective that we're
Right.
working on together, and we can carry him through that. So I think it's important that you can use your own experience to help him. Again, as I said, you'll divulge information age appropriate and help them to navigate that challenges that they are encountering.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. So another question, right? Another question, a very easy question for you, uh, Brother Prince, right? What would you do if you were caught engaging in sexual intercourse with your spouse by your child? How would you address that?
Wow. I don't think it's an easy question for me.
Too easy?
No, I don't think it's an easy question. I tried my best not to let it happen because I have seen situation where I've known of situation and I've known individual who let their child caught them in the act, and it was embarrassing. It was hard to deal with and all of that. So if that should happen, right, I would tell them what we are doing and tell them that this is for married people. You know, they catch me already. I won't lie. This is what you caught me doing, right? And this is what we do. I remember one time, my wife um told me that one of her boys asked, "So, mommy, do you and daddy have sex?" And she said, "Yes." So he said, "Where do you have it?" And she said, "It's in my room, right? We are married people, and this is how you came about." So we just yes, tell them this is what we are doing, and this is not for you. Get married, and then you can do this. So
Yes.
yes,
What's done is done. You have to
yes, it is
address it.
done. They don't catch you already.
I see sister like sister Sidana raising her hand. Yeah, what do you have to say, sister Brown Grizzle? How do you deal with this?
Real thanks, I don't know about that. But I agree with what Brother Prince said. I mean, it's done already. What do you do? Just have a conversation about it. Hopefully, it's a mature enough. It's at a mature enough age, and that's what it is. What are you going to do? Lie about it? It is what it is. I agree totally with what Brother Prince said. You try your best, but if it does happen, you just have the conversation about it. It's just not for you. I am privileged. God has blessed me with a husband, and I am privileged to do that. And you will only be able to, or should only do that when you are blessed accordingly.
Awesome. Sister Graham, same question to you.
Well, I don't have much to say, but I would just agree with Brother Prince and Sister Sidana. Yeah, basically, you just have to explain and tell, you know. Yeah, so I don't have much to say. I agree with them both.
Brother Kirby, you have something you want to say?
I find Brother Prince response to be just you just says it all. Again, as Sinana says, depending on the age, you might have you might have to find a different way to explain it to them. And my kids, again, given their challenges, I'd have what would I have to do? I have to find a different way to explain it. Again, however, if you don't have that kind of a situation, just think like Brother Prince. I've heard of situation. I was talking to a nurse a couple of years ago, and she said to me that her son was a young adult at that time, came in and caught she and her husband in the act. And go feel out. Yeah, but at the same time, you have to be honest with it, and for mature, if it's mature, if it's a mature child, you can use it as a learning tool or a point of learning and
Right.
stuff like that. And it can also be very good at building a relationship. And if it's an adult child, it can also be a good point in helping that child to build their relationship with their spouse. So, just be honest with it.
All right, thank you. I knew it was a very easy question. Sister Morgan, a question for you. What is the right time to talk about sex with one's child? Is there a right time to talk about sex?
It depends on your child. Because as parents, you observe your child and you know what they're able to handle. So right time would depend on your child's maturity and if you feel that your child can handle it. As I said, my rude awakening was in grade 4,
Right.
about 8, 9 years old, where, you have to speak to your child about sex when probably I wasn't even thinking about doing that. So circumstance may dictate that you have to speak to your child about it. Understand? So it all depends.
Okay. Same question to you, Sister Sudan. What is the right time to talk about sex, child?
The right time is when you and the child is ready, and especially considering the child. So I don't believe it's specific to age, but you will pick up when it's the right time if you have a relationship. If you have a good relationship with that child, you will know. And even if they don't have that conversation or they don't say anything about it, it's also a good idea to ask, hey, what's going on? Do you see any guy that you like? Or, that type of thing. And from those little questions, you will know whether or not they are ready to have that conversation. So I think it's definitely hinge a lot on relationship, and you would be able to pick up when it's time if you do have that relationship. And of course, you can, kind of ask some questions here or there to get a sense. Pretty much, Brother Prince, demonstrated that he has done that and it has worked. So, yeah, that's the approach I would take on that.
Okay, interesting. Thanks much. Uh, Over to you, Brother Prince. A question. What if as an adult you've had, bad experience sexually, right? How would you engage or talk to your child about it? Would you talk to your child about it?
You mean, repeat the question?
I'm saying, what if you as an adult, right, had a bad experience sexually, whether, growing up as a child or even as an adult, you had a bad experience. Is it something that you would talk to your child about?
It all depends on the situation and the conversation. I told him that my kids that sex is something that God made. God made it for married people, right? And it's for procreation, right? So it can't be that it's a bad thing,
Right?
right? Fact that someone who might have a bad experience doesn't mean that it is bad. You know, and we have to, I tell them that, right? Once it is done in a godly way, it is good, right? So having a bad experience does not mean that sex is bad. There are some persons who will never have another relationship because they might have a bad first experience. So it's something that I would discuss, and I think I would approach it this way.
Okay. Sister Graham, from a mother's perspective, you know, you say you've had a bad experience as a, you know, as an adult or growing up as a child. Is that something that you share? I mean, we know that some persons, you know, male and female, but especially females, sometimes they'll go through even abuse and you know, a wide range of things that can happen. But is that something you think should be shared with your child?
It depends, depending on the age, right? And not just the age, depending on the circumstance. Because things is not always dandy and perfect. So given might be a particular situation or circumstance or whatever, you know, case it all depends on might be conversation or might be something. It all depends. So it wouldn't be a case that you just ready to, you know, share about experience. It have to be a situation where you're sharing it for a lesson to be learned, you know. So my thought on that, it all depends on whether or not.
I see Sister Sidon ready to chime in. Um, is it appropriate or is it necessary to share experiences? I mean, especially as a child, you know, become of age and gets older and so forth. Let's say, for instance, that you know there are scars in the past that sooner or later may affect the child, and the child may become aware of it. Is it something that you think should be shared?
Again, as was said, it depends on the situation. However, what I believe is critical, if it is for a teaching learning moment, I can understand, because you also have to balance while again we spoke about honesty and transparency, but what is your objective for telling the child? If it is just for sharing, that could cause more harm than good, because then you could have them be scared for something that is beautiful in marriage, right? And that could scar them. So in such a case, I don't think it is necessary to share. However, if let's say they had a bad relationship and they said they never want to get married, or as what came up about either tending to same sex, maybe because of a bad experience or so on, and you had triumphed over that, then you can use that as a teaching learning moment. But outside of that, I don't necessarily think that is just something you share like that to tell your bad experiences, unless, of course, it's with some objective.
Right. Okay, awesome. All right, so we are pretty much, you know, wrapping up now and at the end of our session. We've been here for a little while, and I really do appreciate our parents or panelists who, you know, have taken the time out to be here and share their experiences. And, you know, I just want to close by just asking each person, based on your experience and, you know, what you would have learned and applied in parenthood, give me about just 3 words that really stands out that you think is important in parenting. I know we spoke about policing and other stuff like that, but just 3 words that you believe would really stand out or characterize your style of parenting. Can start with Sister Graham.
3 words: communicate, trust, and communicate, trust. I'm searching for that third word.
All right.
Soon tell you the third one.
I'm sure it's there somewhere. All right, Brother Kirby. Wait, you're still mute. We're not hearing you.
Modeling is one.
Mhm.
As an educator, you would have learned that one of the best way to get a particular behavior is to model it, and persons will pick up on it, and over time start to do it.
Right.
So modeling is one.
Mhm.
Play, given the age of my kids, because I teach them a lot through play.
Mhm.
So playing is a big part. My wife will tell us, man, them ramp a woolly. All right, and just love them, just love them.
Love. Okay. Sister Morgan, over to you.
3 words: honesty, communication, and love.
Honesty, communication, and love. Awesome. Thank you. Brother Prince Rogers.
Wow. I love communication, honesty. As I tell my children, just tell me the truth. No, it's better if you tell me first. And I love protection. I love them to feel secure.
Okay. All right. Sister Sedona.
Okay, prayer, love and relationship, I'll couple those, and discipline.
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 All right. Thank you for that. So we've heard about communication, discipline, or um, having playtime. It's a lot of things that we can pull from and apply to our own style of parenting as well. I must say it has been a very, it has really been a privilege to be here and just hearing everyone's viewpoint. I'm sure we would have learned a lot. I really do thank each and every person for being here. I really want to express thanks to the leadership of Faith Apostolic Ministries for this sort of intervention and program that we can learn. It's a part of you know as children of God. I believe it's important in terms of just having the right tools, not just about coming to church and singing, that sort of stuff, but how to deal with things in a practical way and prepare ourselves to deal with things that we have to encounter in the real world. All right, so with that said, I believe it's the end of our session for tonight. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being with us. And I do trust and pray that we will have a wonderful rest of the evening. And I'll just close with prayer. All right, let us pray. Dear Lord and Heavenly Father, thank you for your goodness and your mercies. We thank you for your grace. We thank you for allowing us to be in this mind, to be able to discuss and to share and to learn from each other. Thank you for being here with us. I trust that you will help us to retain the things that we would have heard and learn some things, we would have heard for the very first time. But I pray most of all that you will continue to guide us as parents to develop the right strategies and to ensure that we are, first of all, good role models and that, sexual purity will be a thing that will be encouraged, especially among us as believers. Ask you just to have your way with us continually. Let's then keep each and every one that par- was able to partake in the session. Listen, keep each and every leader of this organization. Have your way. Let your perfect will be done. in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. Blessings and peace, everyone. Good having you.
Thank you.
The Lord bless you.
All right,
God
thanks
bless.
for having me. It was a good session. Thank you very much.
Thank you and take care now. God bless.
Yes, God bless.
Have a
God
great